when the ID.4 came out, I was one of the early purchasers. It was perfect. It was just, I actually compared the measurements to my X1 to make sure it was going to fit in my garage, and brought my bike to the dealership, make sure it would load in there just great. And, then I drove it, and I was really pleasantly surprised at what a nice driving experience I had on the test drive, and I pretty much bought it right away. I didn't shop around for anything else. That was it.
I don't have the first edition, so Judy has a longer driving experience. I got the all-wheel drive, so mine was delivered in December 21. Volkswagen tried to upsell me into the first edition, but I would lose four-wheel drive and I would lose my red color, so those were like no-goes for me. So I just waited it out.
So welcome back to the VW ID Talk podcast. Today, I am your host, Wes. Jan is our special guest, along with Judy from the Volkswagen ID Talk forums, VW ID Talk. And we're doing this today because we wanted to have a perspective of somebody that has been driving their VW ID.4 for more than 3 years, which I have not done yet. Mine is two years old. And so Judy graciously agreed to come on and talk to us about experiences, positive and negative. And Jan, thanks for letting me interview you today. So if you're an enthusiast about electric cars in general, or Volkswagen specifically, all things electric, please subscribe at your button down the screen. And of course, you can find us on other podcast channels as well, not just on YouTube. So Judy, thanks for being here. Right before we started recording, you were telling us about what made you decide to get your Volkswagen. And you said that you initially had a reservation for a Tesla, but tell us what you were saying beforehand.
Yeah. So thank you, Wes. Basically, I was interested in getting an electric car. I'm a very environmentally conscious person. And so it was important for me to kind of, try to reduce my fuel consumption. So I had put a deposit on one of the early Teslas, but it took an awful long time for them to bring that out and roll that out. And by the time they called me up to actually go in and purchase one, I went, I test drove it. And I didn't really care for the space that it had. I'm a cyclist. By that point, I had gone from a BMW sedan to a BMW X1, the little hatchback, and I liked being able to load my bike into the back from the hatchback. And I thought, I think I'll just wait until something that I really like the body style a little better came out. And so when the ID.4 came out, I was one of the early purchasers. It was perfect. It was just, I actually compared the measurements to my X1 to make sure it was going to fit in my garage, and brought my bike to the dealership, make sure it would load in there just great. And, then I drove it, and I was really pleasantly surprised at what a nice driving experience I had on the test drive, and I pretty much bought it right away. I didn't shop around for anything else. That was it. That's about how much time I put into shopping for my ID.4.
That's great.
So I'm not a tech savvy person like you two.
Yeah, but you don't have to be to appreciate the way that a car drives. And, and I think that's one of the things that Volkswagen really got right with this, is it's a great car to drive.
It is.
I really loved it when I just getting into it, the gear selector mechanism. Some people say it's silly. I thought it was brilliant. Where you go forward to go forward and flip it back to go back, and it's smooth. And it's funny you decided not to get a Tesla. I mean, I know Tesla's politically charged nowadays, but it's kind of ironic. I credit Tesla with being able to buy my electric Volkswagen because of Tesla. They kind of pushed the market forward, and so I was able to buy a Mach-E electric Ford, and it's my first Ford ever, and an electric VW, and this is far from my first VW. But Jan, I think most of us listening to this podcast, we all have electric vehicles or are interested in electric vehicles for similar reasons. But Jan, what attracted you to electric cars and to the ID in particular?
Well, for me, I feel like it was more the technology, because I felt like I already had different gas engines, and I wanted to have some like newer technology. I somewhere back here, I felt like, well, the V5 that I had in the 2.5 liter Jetta, it was a pretty nice engine, and going back to like the 4-popper engine, I felt like that's not what I really want to do. And I actually fell in love with the design and the style when they pre-announced it years ago, before even we were able to reserve. It was called ID Cross, and I had that picture on my phone, and I was telling everybody, like, people were asking me, "What's your biggest dream on your next car?" I'm like, "It's this car," and they were like, "What is that?" It was not even announced officially. And since then I was tracking it. I was like this close from buying an S4. I even test drove it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm like
Audi
very
S4.
close. Audi S4. Yeah, I was so close to it, and I was also exploring some Hyundai's or Genesis. They had a B-turbo, and a very very nice car, sedan. But I actually waited, and I'm glad I waited. And I got my. I don't have the first edition, so Judy has a longer driving experience. I got the all-wheel drive, so mine was delivered in December 21. Volkswagen tried to upsell me into the first edition, but I would lose four-wheel drive and I would lose my red color, so those were like no-goes for me. So I just waited it out.
I feel silly, but I care a lot about the color too. I've got a really light blue, but I went to UNC in North Carolina, and that's our color. So that's great. And the ID.cross is what they still sell it under that name in China, right?
That's how they call it, in China. Yeah.
I love the design of it as well. I don't think, yes, it's a crossover, but I think it rides low like a car. And Judy, you had mentioned earlier that you had wanted a hatchback. What attracted you to hatchbacks?
Well, the space, the ease of loading from the rear. I guess you call it a crossover. I call it a hatchback. So a crossover style, which as I said, I was driving BMWs for my last few cars. I always drove a stick shift. My whole life I drove a stick shift. I drove what I call a real car.
A real BMW,
My whole life until I bought the X1, because they didn't make the crossover style in a stick shift. I couldn't get it. So that car previous to my ID.4 was the first car I drove really regularly that wasn't a stick shift. So but I enjoyed having the space. I enjoyed the ease of loading things and the size. It wasn't too big. In my garage, I really enjoyed parking a vehicle in the garage. That's important to me. So, when my husband and I have a 2-car garage and we want to fit 2 cars in there. So there you go,
Yeah.
So I like that, that size. It's about function for me. And I know you guys are more about fashion. Guys are like that.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I love the way it.
I know. I didn't hear it about us as guys, but
car fashion.
Well, you two were saying how important it was for you to have the right color.
Well, it's funny because what I
Okay.
found out recently, and I think we're going to do an episode on this, is there are these great shops that can do vinyl wraps on your vehicles, and you can just buy whatever color you want and wrap the whole thing. You can't tell that it's a wrap in a lot of cases. The colors are so maybe you don't have to wait for your dream color. But it's funny how much more functional.
I have the flat gray.
Yeah,
I have the matte gray.
That's
and
what
is it a lighter gray or the darker gray?
It's the light gray, the matte gray. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. We had ordered that one, or something in a similar color to that, and then it took them so long. I think I reserved mine in early 2022, and so by the time mid 23 rolls around, and I saw they had this Arctic blue color, I was like, okay, that's what I'm getting. But I would have been happy with the gray. I was happy with the car. I like the way it looked. But it's funny because in the United States, people haven't really gravitated toward hatchbacks as much, and I think finally with the crossover, people are kind of getting why it's better. I mean, everybody has the huge SUVs, but my sister-in-law got one of the little BMW i3s, the small battery car, and she's like, "Wow, you really kind of converted me to hatchbacks. This is so much more useful, even though it's a small car." And they did a really nice job with it. It's funny.
I find it has even a little more space than my BMW did. Just the design of the interior, it's just a little more spacious and enough more that it makes a difference. It's very nice.
Yeah. Well, so that's a good segue. So what are your favorite things? I guess first about having an electric car, but then second about the ID.4 specifically. Judy, what do you think?
Jan, you want to go first, or should I go first?
You go first, Judy.
Okay. Well, first of all, aside from when we take our camper van, which is a gas car, I haven't been to a gas station and had to pump gas in over about 3.5 years. It's real nice just to drive past all the gas stations. So obviously, I love that. This car, as I said a moment ago, I like the roominess of it. It's spacious. It has a really, really nice turning radius. This has the best turning radius of any car I've ever driven. It's super handy. It's amazing how handy that comes in, parallel parking, just making, illegal U-turns, all that kind of stuff. You can just whip it around real quick. You don't have to do a 3-point, just in case somebody's coming. It's got a pretty good range. Now, obviously we can talk about that in the positive and the negative because the range has decreased over 3.5 years, but it's adequate for me. And that's obviously something super personal depending upon how you use your vehicle. But for me, the range is good. It's good enough. What else do I like about the car? Those are the main things.
Yeah.
Those are the main things I like about the car.
But those could apply to really almost any electric, except for the turning radius. The ID.4, like mine is a rear-wheel drive also, and I love that. I do the illegal U-turn thing as well. It's great. You could just, on
Whip
a
it
two-lane
around.
road, you can turn. So, well, Jan, what about you? What is your? I guess we know why you wanted an electric car. What drove you to the, or what are your favorite things about the ID.4?
Well, the favorite, I really liked the interior, the design and the quality of the interior. I was quite pleasantly surprised. I have a friend who wouldn't sit in anything else than Mercedes or AMG. He's German. He has a high quality standard, and when he was a passenger in my car, he's like, "This is the nicest VW I've ever been in," and I totally agree. So that's beautiful, and I also love, as Judy mentioned, that I don't need to go to for the gas, but it's more of a it's very convenient. I just come in home, garage, plug in, and I don't have to worry about anything. But I think third thing what I like is the quietness, and this was I'm really experience this every day when I drive from work. I turn off the radio. I don't listen to much music, which is ironic because I've upgraded my audio, but I enjoy the quietness, and it almost like settles my mind after the busy day at work. That's the beauty for me, and also paired with the automated lane steer and they call it ACC, the cruise control, adaptive cruise control. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just almost like not worry free, but I can relax more than in any other car.
It just helps make it less stressful when you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Sure.
And so, Judy, one of the things you mentioned is you've noticed the range decrease over time. How serious of a decrease has that been? Like 10%,
Sure, and I
20%?
know this is like a big issue for most people and something that probably a lot of people want to know. When I bought the car, I drove it off the lot. It showed that it had a range of 270.
When it was fully charged.
When it was fully charged, yeah.
Okay.
It pretty much never showed that again.
Yeah.
So I feel like a little false advertising, but we know that the range is an estimate, and I would say that 100% charged, it consistently was showing around 250 for quite a long time. And now I charged it just the other day to 100% because I was going to have a long driving day. That's the only time I do it. It showed about 225.
Yeah. Okay.
So the reality is that I don't ever plan to drive any more than about 180 miles because you get range anxiety. I think everybody does. I definitely do. If I'm getting low, I know if that's just an estimate and I've got to go uphill, for example, as opposed to downhill, it's gonna not even give me that many miles. So, but I've driven it into my garage at as low as 10, which is like very stressful. Very stressful. But normally when I charge to the 80%, it's showing me around 175-ish, 170 at the 80%. So I'll go 90, sometimes I'll go 100 if I know I'm going to have a long driving day. And as long as I plan, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I haven't used public chargers for quite some time because they've become very problematic. When I first got the car and I didn't have a level 2 charger at home, I used them all the time. No problem. Everywhere they were empty. Now every time I go, they're full or they're broken. And so therefore, I almost can never get into one. I haven't, and it's not fair for me to say almost never because I really rarely even try it.
Right.
But I had range anxiety, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I stopped at a charge thing, and it wasn't even worth it. There was a wait, and I just said, you know what, I think I'm going to make it home. So
Well, in
I
California,
did.
you're kind of a victim of your own success over there with people getting EVs, and everybody's getting them, and the shortage in chargers. And I guess you haven't used public chargers enough to notice a difference. My experience recently has been that they're working most of the time, which wasn't the experience 2 years ago. And I mean, I still run into the occasional broken charger, but I did pull into my driveway once at 0% charge.
Ooh,
So
you got me beaten.
my wife was not pleased with that, but I was like, oh, we're good. We got enough. But also, I wonder. So you're near more northern California, right? So
No, I'm near San Diego. I'm
oh,
Southern
San
California.
Diego. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask about the weather and if that affects, because on the forum they call that the guessometer, the GOM, and when the temperature gets colder, it's and sometimes it just says crazy stuff, like I'll be at 80% and it says 120 miles. That's ridiculous, But once you get it warmed up and start driving it, it's different. But you're not often taking road trips where you're driving it, 220 miles to see how much it can really do that without charging. Right?
I took it on one road trip, and I won't do it again. Really, I don't think. We have another gas car. My husband drives that, and we have a camper van. They're both gas. Knowing like that, the times that I've recently had to stop at charge stations. Now, let me clarify that I've only used the Electrify America charge stations.
Okay.
So maybe it's issues with their charge stations, but they do frequently seem to not work well, be broken, or be full, or some combination thereof.
Yeah, I think that's a combination of they were really one of the least reliable for a good while, and they only put 4 charging stalls in a lot of their charging locations. You come up to a Tesla Supercharger and there's 10 or 20 charging stalls, and an EA station would have just 4. And of course, if 1 or 2 is broken, well,
So
that
maybe
goes.
maybe the good news is that we will have access to Tesla supercharging sometimes around the summer. So I think that's a
They're
good
saying
news.
June
So
or July at this point.
And
summer.
how
I would
will-
say summer. So,
How
go
will
ahead.
that work? Will there be an adapter that we'll have to purchase, or
Yeah,
do
yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
adapters there, or
Volkswagen is working on an official adapter.
Yeah.
And then there are superchargers that also have the adapter built in, and so it knows what car you're going to charge, and when you pull the plug, it either gives it to you with the adapter or without the adapter. It's very smart. I think
Those are
they
few and
really-
far between, though. They don't have very many of those stations.
They don't have very many of those, but if if VW has the adapter, then we would be able to charge anywhere. And I already tried it in Europe. There were some challenges because of the charge door placement, but that's something that isn't great either. But so it's not like brutally great news, but I think it's like a great news that hey, there is for peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
We at least have another place to go.
Well, in August, we drove our ID.4 to Orlando and back from Central North Carolina, and I found that Orlando, Florida, and I found that our bladders were more of the limit as a family trip than the charging was. I mean, a couple of times we got down to maybe 15%, but we did what you said, Judy, and planned it. And it, coming from Central North Carolina, I said, well, we'll stop in Florence, South Carolina, and we'll stop outside of Athens, Georgia, and we'll stop outside of Jacksonville. And each time we were going approximately 200, maybe 220 miles. I charged to 100% before we left. We would get down to 10 to 20% and then charge up to maybe 90 and get back on the road. But
and
there
you
was
take
only-
your lunch break, or you take your dinner break, or whatever.
Right. And so and I was having to go out to the car and move it before we were done eating, of course, because I didn't want to block the charger for someone else. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as stressful as we thought. There was only one, but it was the problem of only 4 charging stalls at most of these Electrify America locations. Only one of them was out of order. And then our hotel, we got down outside of the cruise port where we were going, and they had a destination charger there that I could have used, but I cheaped out. I was like, well, I can charge for free at Electrify America, and of course that's the one that was broken. So then we got back from the cruise, and I had to sit there for 35 minutes and charge before we were able to leave for home. So
That's the price of free.
the answer, dads, don't
Now,
cheap out.
I'm past my 3 years free charging, so
Yeah.
if I use one now, I do pay. But again, I use my car locally and plan my trips out, so I don't really have to go to charging stations. I charge at home
Yeah.
virtually 100% now.
Well, I
And
think
how
that's-
much
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
how
sorry.
much does your car has on odometer? Just to estimate how much you're driving every year. Do you drive more than 10,000 miles a year, or?
Oh, I should have come with that information. I could go to my garage and look. I think that I'm about 50,000 miles or
50,000
so.
miles. Okay.
Pull up your app and check the My VW app.
Yeah,
and see
it's in the
Is it in there?
my VW, but that, yeah, plus minus, so 50 because
is.
mine is I am on 18, so people are laughing at me that I'm not.
You're
Oh,
really-
you don't drive much.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
But that's perfect though for what you said. Being able to drive, be able to charge at home is the perfect use case. And that's one of the things when people are asking about EVs. I was like,
Yeah.
well, if you can't charge at work or home or an apartment complex, then maybe not yet, right? But
I think the biggest shock when I bought the car and I didn't have a level 2 charger at home was the difference between going to a gas station, putting the gas nozzle in, and within 5 minutes you're filled up,
right,
and having to go to Electrify America, fiddle around with the app, try to get it to work,
yeah,
get the thing plugged in, and maybe be on the phone with the tech support, which
Yeah.
the first 5 times I couldn't figure
ridiculous.
the thing out. But then having to wait another half hour or so to get
Yeah.
your charge in there, sometimes longer.
Yeah.
So that was a big shock. Yeah. But
The home
if
charging
you can
makes all
charge
the
at home,
difference.
now it's great.
Yeah, and I would also say that we were the early adopters, right? Because that literally was the first generation of the Electrify America chargers. So I'm hoping that it could get even better. Now there is another new charging network that is being built in America, Iona. They have a couple of charging stations in close to US.
Oh, is that the joint venture that like Mercedes and Honda?
Yeah, many. There's
Okay.
like 6 Hyundai, Toyota, and many others. So yes, and
Okay.
I feel like that's it. So it's going to get better for sure.
Yeah, and Electrify
Yeah.
America has already gotten a lot better.
Yes, because
particularly
they literally had to change their chargers. They literally had to change the vendor, the provider of the charging equipment. So it must have been some brutal amount of money that they spent on this. I can't even imagine.
But Jan, both you and Judy do not have the plug and charge capability. Is that correct on your
We
cars?
don't. No.
Okay.
No.
They
What do
rolled
you
that
mean the
out.
plug-in? What do you mean?
What do you, I love it. It means what it sounds like it means. So for owners of 2023 and later models, and mine is a 2023, if you set it up in your Electrify America app, you can drive up to Electrify America and plug the cable in, and it charges.
And no fiddling with the app.
There-
It
there's
just
no
you just
app,
plug it
there's
in.
no- So, I don't know
Got it.
if or when they're going to roll that out for 22 and 21 models, but it's hard to overstate how much more convenient that is, Judy, because my experience was exactly yours. Of I can do this; it's not a problem. Then you get to where this should not be this hard. Every app is a different
Yeah.
interface. They don't have. So the good news, well, until recently, the NEVI funding, that's the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure funding, specified that all of the public chargers that receive funding must have a credit card reader. So you can walk up,
That's good. So you can swipe.
tap a phone
Nice.
or swipe a card, and charge without having to have an app or any kind of weirdness. So hopefully those things will even continue to improve. But I think, Jan, I guess none of us have any idea if Volkswagen is going to roll out an update to allow plug and charge. In fact, my understanding is that after your free 3-year plan expires, that plug and charge will cease to work. And
I have no idea.
We don't
Knowing
really know.
Volkswagen, how fast they move, I would say it's soon multiplied by the
right.
agility coefficient, which is infinity. So
large, right.
I'm not sure. It's of course a software issue. There is a certificate in the car, and I'm not sure why our certificate cannot be swapped. But I think that's
We'll
another
find out.
different story. But I have some fun numbers if
Okay.
if it's okay for me to share them, because when
Of
we
course,
talk
I was
about
gonna ask you.
the DC charging, right? So I am also past the 3-year free DC charging, but there's this great tab where you can say, what was my lifetime charging at Electrify America? And so for me, it was roughly 16% of the entire charging capacity. It was at Electrify America, which in numbers is like 1.3 megawatt hours. To those that these numbers mean something, but EA says that I've saved $560 throughout, and it was 50 charging sessions. So you see that I haven't charged it much. I was mostly like 84% of my charging was AC charging.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and we first got our car. I spent probably a month to 6 weeks where we were looking for public level 2 chargers, parking lots that would have the short one, and getting like an hour or two of charge at a time. And it was honestly pretty stressful because there weren't any high-speed chargers around here. And even though local parks would have them, but trying to do a little bit at a time. So we knew we were going to get a level 2 charger installed at the house, but that's a game changer. What you're saying, like not having to go to the gas station, but really you're not, yes, it takes 6 or 8 hours to charge, but you're not standing there by the car waiting for it to charge. You're inside, having dinner with your family or watching a movie or whatever you do, and you wake up to a full tank every day. And so that experience,
as long as your home charger works properly.
Well,
and you mentioned that you had, I've seen that you were mentioning that you had some challenges with scheduling the charge, right? Because technically that should have been already working on the version 3 of the software. So first assumption is it okay? Has your car been updated to in the shop to the version software 3 or something? This happened like 2 years ago. Do you recall?
I do have the latest update, except for the most current update, which I'm taking it in tomorrow for.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
Yeah, with the door handle fix.
Oh,
Jan said, do you recall?
Do you recall? Yes,
however, do I recall? That's
tomorrow
great.
You're doing your recall.
Good one. I got it.
Sorry.
I love it. No pun intended, right? So, let me just say that I don't know if the car timer is now working because I started using the timer on the charger itself and have done so ever since I figured out how to do it, and had to get on tech support multiple times with my now best friend in China on video calls to get the whole thing working right. But I have an app with my timer called We Charge. And I just use that app, and I have that set up to start at midnight, because the way that the plan that I'm on here that is the cheapest electricity works is that from midnight to 6 a.m. is super off, what they call super off-peak hours. However, it's SDG&E, yes, and you have to pay $16 a month to be on the plan that gives you the super off-peak hours. Wow. I also have solar, so it might not matter if I do the super off-peak, but I do it just in case I go over, and it's just easy to set it up. I plug it in, I come into the house, I open my app, and I just say schedule, and it hits it to not start until midnight. So therefore, in answer to your question, Jan, I do have the most recent update. Whether or not the timer through the car works, I don't know, because I haven't even tried it.
Yeah, you haven't tried. I tried it on the version 3, and it works. At least in my case. So I'm sure in your case it would work as well, because we pretty much have the similar hardware of the car. So
yeah.
So Jan, how long did you own your car before you had your home charger installed, or was it right away?
Yeah, well, I'm nuts. So I had my home charger before I had my car, and of
course you did.
Don't ask. So it was Black Friday, and I'm like, well, I'm getting sometime my car, so I got the charger, the Grizzle E, that we spoke about in one of our episodes. But I installed it from day 0, and I must say, I was originally kind of intrigued to use the DC charging, right? Because it was free. But then I realized what a nonsense it is. Well, maybe it was more logical for me as I was moving from the gas car. So kind of like going to the pump was something like this urge that, but yeah.
It's a paradigm shift, isn't it? A 20-cent shift, we call it, because that's the paradigms and how you use your charger. But we did ours. A friend, actually another software engineer, and I installed our charger. You're supposed to pull a permit if you install a charger.
Yeah,
please.
So we're all aware that is supposed to be done.
Yes.
And by the way, this is no fun, because there are so many, especially if your charger isn't hardwired, if it goes to a NEMA socket, there are so many sockets that are not intended for car charging that it could be a serious issue for a big fire issue.
Yeah, please hire an electrician if you're watching this at home. Yeah.
I have a family member who's a commercial electrician who did mine. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. So what else? What do I miss? Oh, I meant to ask you if you were having. Is there anything that bothers you particularly about the car? Have you had any software gremlins? A lot of people make a big deal out of. We made a big deal on the show about things before. Is there anything that particularly bothers you, or are you just kind of, it's a car, it works well,
Well, I'll answer first. generally that's me. I'll put up with a lot of little quirks, and I can tell you that the window levers are a pain because there's only two, and then you have to hit the other thing. It's just ridiculous. Like, why didn't they just put four? Okay, that's stupid, but okay, I've gotten used to that. I can't change the fan. I don't like that everything's on the infotainment screen and you have to like drill down to where the fan is. I just want to be able to change the fan. Like, can they put a couple dials for the things you use the most? You know, the doors, sometimes you can't open them right away and you have to like pull the handles twice for the door to open. And my elderly mother, I always, got to walk around and do it. And sometimes the child locks go on and off, and who knows? I don't try to even figure it out. Sometimes I pull the trunk for the trunk to open. Sometimes it opens, sometimes it doesn't. Every time when I walk around and I squeeze it, it opens. So, I'm okay. But I did have one really, really bad incident. It won't happen again, so I understand, because of the update. But it was before the last update, and they had the problem with the cars losing power. Did you know about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 12-volt battery.
It happened to me. It happened to me. It was really frightening. I mean, I could have died, right? The car lost power on the freeway. My husband was
while you were driving.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really
that was the
bad.
12-volt battery died, or was it something else? I don't know that I've heard of.
Honestly, I don't know the actual
Interesting.
reason.
I think there was. I think that was part of the update to the version 3. There was some that the motor stopped communicating with the battery, so the motor reset it.
So that is a serious problem. Well, I'm glad you got that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really dangerous. My husband was driving. We were in like the third lane on the freeway, and he says, "I don't know what's wrong. I don't know." I go, "What's happening?" He didn't really know at first. He goes, "Well, I seem to have lost power." I go, "Oh my God, pull over." And, he turned, and I hit the flasher button, and, it's dusk. It's kind of late afternoon, and he starts to move over. Luckily, he was able to get over. However, unluckily, we were on a bridge when the car came to a stop.
That's awful.
The shoulder was not much of a shoulder. It wasn't even
on the
enough
bridge,
shoulder for the vehicle to completely be in the shoulder. So we were actually sticking out a tiny bit of the car was still in the lane with the flashers on. And I'm like, oh my God. And I go, let's get out of the car. I mean, if somebody hits us, right? And then we tried to climb over the guardrail to be, away from the car. And then it fell off onto it like in a cliff. And we were like on this little thing, like on the guardrail. And then I'm like, let's call 911. He's like, well, let's call like AAA. I'm like, no, I'm calling 911 first. And the CHP showed up, and he put out his flashing things, and he was pretty funny. He tried to calm us down. He goes, I hate electric cars. He goes, I'd never own one. He goes, if they stop, they're like a brick. You can't push them. You can't, do anything. They're just horrible. And he was really funny, but
that's grumpy.
Anyway,
and did the car have to be towed at the end? Like, it didn't restart, right? It had to be towed, or?
So as the story goes, our tow truck took a very, very long time. And in the meantime, we had tried to start it over and over, a few times, obviously, before we got out of the car and everything. But then when it wouldn't, that's when we got out. I forgot to tell you that part. So the CHP, he gets in the car. He goes, well, I've been trying to start it. I go, oh, we've tried it. It won't start. I'm going, well, he goes, how do you work this thing? And I get in and I show him, and it starts. After it's probably been a good half hour.
Okay, bus sleep. That's the solution. Bus sleep.
And then it actually started. So we called off I'm like, well, do we trust it? Do we actually drive it? Like, or is this going to happen again? And so we just decided to take it off the off-ramp, the very next off-ramp, and to drive it on surface roads and not get back on the freeway. And we drove it surface roads back home. We weren't too far away from home. And we got it home. And the dealer got us in the very next day for the update.
Yeah, so that's scary, and
it was really scary.
This is unfortunately not limited to Volkswagen, and the that particular I guess that was a software problem. Our Mustang Mach-E had a hardware recall for the same reason, where the physical contactor would fuse
in the
open, and so they couldn't. Then it wasn't a software problem. They would have to go replace it. They initially did a software update they thought would at least fix it or detect the problem, and then a year later they said, no, we're going to come replace it. So it's been a learning curve for some people. You would think,
and to make us all feel better, Hyundai had their fair share of issues as well. So it's not just one or two brands. It's like all of the traditional automakers, even though they have so much experience. Yeah, that's very bad.
Because most of it,
I've actually had two other incidents with the car, not the power loss, but two other things happened with the car that have been very, very frustrating. And I might just share them with you out of interest.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of these issues, but one of them was my husband was backing the car out of the garage, and it's very, very tight, and it was very close to the the edges of the garage door, and it just got, I think it has to do with the sensors. I figured out later, but if the sensor thinks you're going to hit it, it just stops the car very, very suddenly.
It's called maneuver braking. It just slams the brake that
it
almost breaks your neck. Yeah.
Okay, so this happens,
it's
right?
A feature.
And then,
it's all Volkswagen cars.
Okay, well, it was terrible. Actually, at the time, I said I'm getting rid of the car, but it hasn't happened since, because it took maybe a half hour to get the car going because
really?
I couldn't. Finally, he climbed out the car the other way, and I got in, and I tried to turn it this way, turn it that way. It wouldn't go forward. It wouldn't go in reverse. It kept thinking it was going to hit.
Stuck in this
it was stuck there. It wouldn't go.
Yeah. So just
it took over I would say over a half hour and a lot of cussing.
Well, that's what fixed it, is the cursing.
Yes.
But so just
disable
for a future
it.
tip, I was going to say the same thing Jan was going to say, which is that when the backup camera comes on, there's a little gear icon in the bottom right that you can click on settings, and you can disable maneuver braking, and it will turn that off. But as somebody who doesn't, like for instance, if you have a bike rack on the back of the car, it's going to think you're about to back into something if you don't have which you don't have the tow kit because you have do you have a first edition? Do you have a tow kit? Do you have a tow?
I don't.
Okay. It will think you're going to back into something, and it'll slam on the brakes. Or if you have a really steep driveway where it's about to hit the road, as you get to the bottom, it thinks you're going to back into a wall. That's what Jan has to deal with. So it's most of the time it's fine, but until the time it's not, and then your car can't move. So I know this, and Jan knows this, but as a consumer,
I didn't know what to do.
No. How would you?
Exactly.
It hasn't happened since, but it's something that I should know.
Yeah.
What to do.
Yeah. And so what we'll do, we'll link the video where we talk about exactly this feature.
Great. I would like that.
With my wife in the car. So it was my wife and the dog, and we were backing up, and then we both almost what's happening? And we were right on the threshold of the driveway because the slam on the brake is I thought we hit somebody or something, but no, it's just the car decides to stop. So
yeah. So the second thing that happened that was kind of ruined my day, shall we say, is that I started to head out somewhere, and there was a beeping that wouldn't stop, and it kept going. It was like an alert.
So the rear door were not closed.
Well, I thought maybe that's what it was, but then of course I stopped and I checked everything, and no, it wasn't a door open or anything. Well, I was on a real time crunch to get to where I wanted to go, and it wasn't affecting the driving. The car was driving fine, so I kept driving, but it was very much worrisome. And I got on the phone as I was driving with I tried to get a dealer on the line. I'm like, my car just keeps beeping, and I'm driving, and I don't know what to do. What does this mean? Is the car going to do something weird? And nobody knew. I couldn't get to anybody. And just before I had to get to my meeting, which was about, 40 minutes away, I had to stop to use the bathroom. So I did. I stopped at a gas station or something. And when I came back out and I started the car up again, it resolved.
Oh, busted.
But I literally was on the phone for that whole half hour, panicking about this noise. And I still to this time don't know what it was.
Was it beep, 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 beep? Or what was the noise?
It was a constant beeping. I mean, I still tend to think it was some kind of a sensor. Maybe there was dirt on a sensor, and I don't know how to resolve things like that.
But it wasn't a seatbelt chime, or
no.
There was a weight in the passenger seat. But
no. I know how to troubleshoot that stuff.
I feel like we're on Car Talk here, where we're asking you to make that sound.
But it hasn't happened again.
Yeah. Well, geez, what I was going to say was kind of related to this, but I think so. You're a person who runs a wealth management firm. You invest in environmentally responsible things. You have solar. You have an electric car because you care about the environment. So you're willing, I think, to put up with a lot of things that the average car buyer, I'm not really joking, that an average person would not be willing to put up with because you care about doing this for social reasons. And would you agree with that statement? I mean, I am.
I would just say I'm not a tech savvy person,
Right.
and I like the car. I like driving the car.
Yeah.
And when these things happened, what was I going to do? Get rid of the car? I mean, I thought about it. I looked up Kelly Blue Book and everything. I did. I thought about it when I couldn't back
And that
out of the
changed your mind
garage
really
that
quick. you saw the value. It's like, I guess I'll keep.
But I'm also like a super busy person, and I just don't have time to deal with getting another car. Like to me, the car is great otherwise. So if it doesn't happen again, I'm perfectly happy.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. Like before this car, I would just put gas in and get new tires, and as long as everything's get my oil changes, everything's good, gets me point A to point B. I can put my bike in, and I'm happy.
But you shouldn't have to be a tech savvy person in order to operate your. Sorry, Jan, what were you going to say?
No, I was just wanting to say that great that you found the VW ID talk, right? Because that's why, like people, that we have so many people. There are great moderators that help to solve problems, because you are not only one who ran into these types of problems, and so they immediately know what the solution might be. So I feel like being part of that digital community, I know it's not like great experience, but from the car perspective, but at least there is a faster way to solve it than call 1-800-Volkswagen whatever line.
You would never get the answers that way, and the forum is amazing. It's been really fun to be a part of the forum. And I'm grateful to all of those people who are tech savvy. And I feel almost guilty because I can't solve other people's problems with the car. So part of the reason that I'm offering my, my thoughts here to you guys, I don't have any technology knowledge to really offer to the group.
You're still contributing to the community, not just through this, but by being a part of it, and it's important, right? I mean, and next you'll be able to help somebody in the future with knowledge you get from that, I think too. So it's, and part of it is EV evangelism too. I mean, I'm even sort of an early adopter, willing to put up with things. I mean, we got our Mustang about the time I guess you folks were getting your, maybe a little bit later. We got it in 2022. They were adding all kinds of markups and things, and it was a little bit of a Wild West, right? It was harder to find public charging and things like that. But I knew I didn't want to buy another gas car. And then after I bought this, and we got our home charger installed, I was like, I knew we wouldn't have to. But, for people that live in apartment complexes, a friend of mine that owns a local gym lives in an apartment that offers free charging. And he got one of these leases on a Kia EV6. Wow. He's paying, I don't know, a few $100 a month with a nice Kia GT, and he free charging at home. GT. Nice. But if you're in an apartment or a condominium, or a big city, and you don't have home charging or charging at work, it's really not a great. You still really can't get an EV. I wouldn't recommend anybody get one.
Yep.
If you can't.
I agree.
So, Jan, have you had any? I know you've had one major issue that we brought up on the podcast before, but have you had any of the kind of things that Judy's had where you?
I think I was lucky that I didn't have the engine shutoffs during drives. I had on the version 2 of the software. I had these, and I think people call them phantom errors, meaning you just drive on a highway and suddenly it says that your front assist or your lane keep isn't available, and like nothing happened, and so you don't know why. Then you stop, of course, do the bus leap, and then the car just drives normally, right? So luckily these were completely gone with the latest with the software version 3, but other than the having the car braked after the software update, I didn't have any. I must knock on the wood. I really didn't have any letdowns that the car wouldn't start or drive.
Well, when Jan says bus sleep, by the way, this the Volkswagen technician's term for you're great for basically locking the car and taking the key at least 60 feet away from the car and leaving it off for 15 minutes, and that gives it time to shut down all the car's systems and
because the car has like 50 computers, and
the car's
after
meditating.
Exactly, car's meditating. Exactly, it's like the yoga for the car, right? Like, so when you start when you start the yoga, it kind of takes a minute before we fully get into it, and that's the same for the car. So in like 4 or 5 minutes, is it like 4 or 5 minutes, Wes? When the modules? Oh, it's 15. 15.
And then the car says, "I'm gonna stay right here for 15 minutes," and then it goes. Sorry. Yeah. It's not going to get any better. I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, I know that Jan's biggest problem was one of the software updates didn't apply properly to some of the modules, and the car wouldn't start. Like he couldn't drive it. He had to have it towed to the dealership. So
and I couldn't even I couldn't release the rear brakes. So the person who was towing it from the garage had to kind of literally like skid it from the garage.
yeah, he slid something under the wheels so that it would slide out.
Yeah. He had some.
So I mean, the other things are quibbles, the window switches and the software, the fan and stuff. But having phantom loss of power on the freeway, or
crazy.
not being able to move out of your garage because of the maneuver braking. It's emergency braking. It's super useful. It keeps you from hitting something, but unless you're not going to hit something and it's braking for no reason. So those are the kind of things that I think they're getting worked out, luckily. But well, I guess we can summarize. I'll go to Jan first this time. I know what my answer is, but Jan, if you're buying another electric car, would you buy the ID.4 again after 3 years with it? And would you buy the same model, or would you wait for a new one that's got the Tesla connector? Or
well, you know me, I'm crazy enough, and I would get the ID.7, maybe the Tourer.
Yeah,
that almost was my dream car, like same red color, 4-wheel drive, ID.7.
Yeah. The Tourer, which I guess is European for station wagon.
At the very end, station wagon. Yeah.
Okay, but you would get another Volkswagen, knowing what you would.
I would strongly consider either the EV6 Kia or Hyundai. I had reservation for EV6 for Kia, but hearing those issues, being able to drive those cars as well. Yes, the 800 volt architecture has some pros, but from a interior design, and of course, you know me, I want to work on the car. Right? I want to do my retrofits, and these retrofits. So Judy, what we are trying to do is there are some features that are offered in Europe that are not offered in the US, and we are retrofitting these things in our cars.
I don't even know what an ID.7 is.
Oh, it's like an electric Passat, pretty much.
We'll put a picture when we edit this. But yeah, it's like the size of a Passat. It's a sedan.
Yeah,
and they were going to bring it to the U.S., but they decided not to.
Yeah.
And in Europe, it's available also in kind of a hatchback. It's basically a cooler-looking station wagon.
Yeah.
But
so that's my take. I would probably wait for the next generation car. So I would probably wait for the refresh of the MEB platform. That's the platform that our car is built on, or look into premium platform electric, which is something that Audi and Porsche built together.
Okay. How about you, Judy? Knowing what you've dealt with now that they're kind of fixed, would you do it again?
Yeah. I enjoy the car. Every day I use it. I love it. It's great. The problems that I've had, yes, at the time, I wanted to tear my hair out and sell the car the next day. But once I calm down, I move on and, go on with my life, and everything's
Once you check
fine.
the Kelley Blue Book value.
So I'll drive this car into the ground basically until there's a problem with it. And then I'll go to the forum and ask people what I should get.
Yeah. Well, and there are plenty of people in the
forum
forum
all the people who are in the know tell me, because I'm not in the know. I don't even know what the ID.7 is. I don't even know what all the other cars are out there. So.
But how would you, if you're not a car person?
Yeah, exactly. And the good news is that there is a great battery degradation spreadsheet that people started in Europe. SunWizard, who's the moderator of the VW ID forum, has propagated and advertised in the forum. And what is interesting is the majority of cars on 3 years have degradation above 90%. Yes, there are a few that are below 90%. So it will take some time before the car will get driven down, right? Like people say, well, maybe like it's hundreds of thousands of miles, but is it like 200, 300, 400?
Hard to say.
Don't know yet.
Yeah.
So if my degradation, let's say it wasn't really 270 in the beginning, it was really 250, and now it's 225, that's 10%.
Yeah. It's probably still close to 250. I think it's trying to guess based on, when you see them say GOM, a GOM on the forum, that's what they mean.
The weather makes a big
guessometer.
difference. The temperature makes a huge
yeah.
difference.
Yeah. And it's trying to do it based on, like, if you just took a highway trip at 70 miles an hour, the next time you get in the car, it's probably going to show you a lower estimated range based on how you drove last time. And then as you drive it around town at 35 or 45, you're gonna see higher range. It's hard to, without actually doing the drive it until it shuts off test, right? You don't really know what charge it to 100% and literally drive, and have somebody follow you that can tell you when it cuts off. And then that's how you know what your range is, and nobody wants to Who's going to do that?
Nobody's going to do that. So, as a question to you two about the battery degradation, does it tend to be a kind of a straight line over time, a straight line over miles, or does it tend to like drop to where, you know, it degrades less at the beginning and then more, you know, over the years? Or how does that curve, you know, actually work?
Well, what I've read is that it drops a good bit at first, not a lot. It drops within the first 6 months or so, several percentage points, and then very, very slowly after that. Is that what you recall, Jan?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I have to look that up to know. Yeah.
If I've had, let's call 10% degradation over 3 years, over the next 3 years, I might have 5%, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or
less.
So that's really good. Okay.
Or
I
less,
didn't
yeah.
know that. And that's good information.
Yeah, I think you might have had 5 or 6% over the first year, and then another 3 each year after that. And it gets to be less and less each year. I mean, I think so. The warranty is that you will have 70% capacity for 8 years or 100,000 miles. That's the federal warranty. It's required by law to encourage people to get into EVs. So that's not just a Volkswagen thing. But Jan's got a charging curve here.
Did not even know that.
So this is on the forum. When you search for battery state of health tracking, then you'll find the sheet itself, and we'll link it down below for others to read, but also to contribute to. So you see that exactly, that's what you said. It's so this is based on miles, but also based on age. It's pretty much very similar. That it's falling off initially very rather quickly in the first 200 days, and then
But only
it
a
little
few percentage
tapers off.
points.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see that this is like this area is around the 3 years, and you still see that most of these dots are above 90%. So that, to me, that's really good news.
Very good news.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, is there anything personal that you wanted to add, either of you, about car experiences? You know, I think we covered a lot. I think this is great for people to be able to hear from just, you know, a regular. Well, you're an outstanding person, Judy, but like as far as a car driver is concerned, you know, somebody who's not.
I'm
an
pretty
enthusiast.
regular.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Jan and I are certainly not standard, but in every sense of the word. But being able to hear what your experience was and how frustrating some of it is, and how much you still like the car, despite what many people would say, like, I'm not dealing with this. You know.
I mean, look I don't have to do oil changes.
Yeah.
You know, I just put tires on it, and there's I mean, I don't know what else they do. Would they update the software? I don't know what other maintenance really there is.
Yeah. There's not. I mean, there's not much.
Agreed.
I changed my oil filter, or my cabin filter. Sorry. I changed my cabin filter. I put washer fluid in it. You know.
You know, in reference to the Kelley Blue Book and the value, you know, if the statistics are showing that the batteries are not degrading, you know, considerably and dramatically, especially after the first few years, then it begs the question: why is it that the value of the cars aren't holding up better than they are?
Yeah. I don't know how they calculate that with Kelley Blue Book, but I think they're taking the market forces into account, and so much of it is just public sentiment. I mean, good old-fashioned feelings and perception.
Yep.
What are people paying for the cars? I think that's what Kelley Blue Book is looking at. And so,
that would mean that a used electric vehicle would be a bargain for somebody. Actually,
and from everything we've been reading, that's about to be very true, because many of the earlier cars are coming off lease right now. People that had 3-year leases are about to surrender those cars, and there should be quite a few battery electric vehicles. And at least for now, anything that is under $25,000 and at least 2 model years old, meaning right now a 2023 or earlier, qualifies for a $4,000 used vehicle tax credit from the federal government.
Wow.
So you can buy a $24,000 used car for $20,000. And I was just checking recently, because of having a kid that's going to need a vehicle soon. You know, BMW i3s can be had for 15 to 17. That's kind of expensive compared to where they were. Chevy Bolts, $14,000. The ID.4s I'm seeing are still in the 20s, even for 2021 models.
Yeah.
2022.
I just ran the KBB. I didn't have a courage to look, but it's exactly half of what I paid for the vehicle.
Yeah.
So that would be a bargain as a financial advisor. I would tell people looking for an electric vehicle to consider a used one right now, especially with this $4,000 credit. I mean, wow, what a great deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. So why don't we wrap up the recording?
Thanks everybody for watching again. Judy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences. And Jan, thanks for being a guest today instead of a host. And as always, sharing your knowledge. Please remember to subscribe if you guys appreciate this. It really helps us get more people interested and make more of these. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.
And Judy, thank you so much for jumping on. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Take care.